He's taken us to deep space in Battlestar Galactica and For All Mankind, and brought us to the distant past in Outlander. But next he'll be exploring the mythos of an iconic video game series in live action. Here to tell us about the Prime Video original series based on God of War, showrunner Ronald D. Moore. Welcome, Ron.
Thank you, it's a pleasure to be here.
So I have to say, straight off the bat, maybe this will make your questions, your answers to my questions easier. I'm a huge fan going all the way back to Next Generation, so it's just an honor to talk to you.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So on that note, now I'm going to try to pry God of War info out of you.
Yeah, good luck. We'll see what you can do.
Yeah, so we'll try. So I guess the first question I have is, what drew you to God of War? I know you've said you're not really a gamer. What was it about the property that interested you?
It was just when I started watching it, I started looking at the cutscenes together, and there's, so much material there, and I really responded to the characters. I responded to the story of Kratos and his son, and then they set out on this epic journey, in this world that was finely detailed and really interesting, and there's a lot of combat and battles and interesting monsters along the way, but I kept coming back to this story of father and son, and it was just emotional, and it was different, and I hadn't seen anything like that before, and I had no expectations because, like you said, I'm not a gamer. I knew the title, but I didn't really know what the story was, so I didn't really know what I was going to be looking at. And I was just taken with it, and so I said, yeah, I'd love to do it. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, and you haven't really played, you've watched cutscenes, but you haven't actually played it.
I've tried to play it, I continue to try to play it, but I grew up in the arcade era, so I can bang away. Give me a Defender console or an Asteroid console, I'll kick your ass. But guy, it's just a different thing. My family can do it. My wife can play video games. My wife plays Skyrim, but I lack the muscle memory of my thumbs, and so Kratos is fighting the troll, and I'm constantly like, okay, which one's the B button? No, I'm dead. It's that kind of thing.
Right.
But I try.
How would you describe the tone of the show?
The tone of the show is trying to emulate the tone of the game, which is there's this epic journey, this this heartfelt story of these two men setting out on this thing to honor the memory of Kratos' wife and Atreus' mother. So it has this emotional heart, but there's this sense of history of who Kratos is, this mystery about his past, what he represents, the emotions that he's going through. So there's a weight to it, but not so much weight that there's not enjoyment along the way, and there's spectacle, and there's lots of things going on in this world.
Yeah, sure. So I think there's a bit of a theme through your work, which is a single parent or a missing parent. It goes back to your Next Generation spec script, where it dealt with a crew member who died and left behind her son. I know you didn't create Deep Space Nine, but obviously Ben Sisko and Jake are,
Right.
dad and son. The mom's gone, like Atreus' mom. Battlestar Galactica gets into this stuff. Is this something that a theme that you're aware of that's in your work? And could this be part of why you're interested in God of War?
It's a recurrent theme. I mean, I'm always interested in it, and it's a classic theme. It goes back many, many eons. It's not something I do in particular, and I think it's because it's a broken family. Broken families with missing people that have ruptured relationships are endlessly interesting. There are ways of bringing out character because there's a pain, there's a trauma, there's something that's happened, and they're trying to work through it. So it's always a good way to set up a drama to sort of explore character, and I think that is why I respond to it.
Yeah. What is your take on Atreus as a character? Obviously, Kratos is he's long been the face of the franchise, but what are you hoping to achieve through the portrayal of Atreus?
Well, again, we want to sort of honor the game and what they laid out for Atreus' journey. Here's a young man who doesn't know his father very well, that sets out on this mission, and along the way they learn about each other.
Yeah. So in terms of Kratos, there have been different incarnations of him. Are you familiar with the earlier versions of God of War? And
yes.
Is there a chance that we'll get little dollops of that? Kratos?
Maybe. Now you'll have to wait and see.
Okay. I'm flying too close to the sun now, right?
Yeah, I'm flying a little close to the sun.
Okay. So let's move on and talk about some of your other work. Battlestar Galactica is now over 20 years old.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
That crazy, yeah.
What do you consider the legacy of that show now?
Oh, that's hard for me to say. I mean, the show meant so much to me and to the family and team that worked on it together. So it's incredibly important to us, and we were very, very proud of it while we were doing. And I think the thing I'm struck by now looking back, is how much we believed, and we were the little show that nobody cared about, and the network hates us, and we don't care. One day they'll love us was kind of how we felt. Like, you'd get critical acclaim, and there was a sort of a thing, but the ratings were always so-so. The network's always threatening to cancel you, and then we're off the air, and you just kind of felt like someday, and it's come to fruition. Like, actually, it's looked back as a classic, and that's incredibly gratifying and fulfilling for those of us who worked so hard on it and believed, from everybody, from the writers to the producers to the cast to the crew that slaved every day on that set.
Yeah.
That we all just believed, and it's amazing to see that it's lasted.
Yeah, it seems to me it was a really important part of your career as a writer as well,
yeah.
and that you were obviously on Star Trek for, I think, 10 years.
10 years.
And to then be free of the binds or the irons of Star Trek finally,
Yeah.
and all this stuff came out.
Yeah.
So I think there's a reason why they still haven't been able to. Keep trying to remake it or do a new version, and how can they? You can't perfect that, right?
I'm the last person in the world to say you can't reboot something, obviously. So, good luck, and go for it. And I hope anybody who does it, I wish them well.
Yeah, you're a very nice guy. Don't reboot it. Don't Star Trek. What's your favorite episode that you ever wrote? It's kind of an unfair question, I suppose, but I'm not going to ask it anyway.
It is an unfair question, and I'll give you a different answer depending on when you ask me. The one that pops in mind would probably be Tapestry.
Yeah.
Late Next Generation, Picard and Q, Picard revisiting part of his past, learning a lesson, and it was a personal story to me that sort of reflected my own autobiography. At that point, I had flunked out of college and lost my scholarship, and the whole career had fallen apart. But looking back, I realized if not for those mistakes, if not for those things that had happened, I wouldn't have been able to do Star Trek. So it was really great to be able to write a story where Picard could kind of look back and reflect on his life in the same way.
Yeah, and it's one of the, many fans claim that as their favorite episode as well.
Yeah, it was a wonderful episode.
Yeah. So then in terms of other Star Trek episodes that you didn't write, any show, old original series, anything, do you have a favorite out of those?
Oh, well, my favorite original series episode is Conscience of the King.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I love. It's an interesting episode. It's an atypical episode. It's sort of an episode that demonstrates, how broad the Star Trek canvas can be. The Enterprise is not just going to an alien world. This time, there's a man on board that might have been a mass murderer from the past, and he's from Kirk's past, and the show is about, revenge versus justice, and can you let the ghosts of the past, go, or are they always with you? And I would love that episode as a kid. I think it's a really interesting show.
Yeah, it's like it's from that first batch of 12, I think, that they did, where it still feels a little different than the main regular old original series we'd become accustomed to.
Yeah, they're still figuring out the show. Yeah.
And it's a certain flavor of Star Trek, which is really, yeah. What can you tell me about Star City? It's the upcoming spin-off of For All Mankind. I believe the first season has been shot at this point.
Right.
What can you preview about that?
Well, it's telling the story of For All Mankind, but from the Russian side. And when I say that, it's not that we're going to go through every single story point that we did in For All Mankind. We are going to tell the story of the Russian space program from the moment they land on the moon forward. And it's a different world. Star City has the KGB involved. There's a lot of secrecy. At NASA, if you screw up your job, you might get fired. You screw up your job in Star City, you might get a bullet in the head.
Right.
So the stakes are very, very different. And there's more rough and ready quality to what they were doing in Star City. In reality, the spacecraft were not as advanced as what we did in the United States at NASA. They took tremendous risks. They lost more people. It's a darker and edgier show, but it's still grounded in the same idea of reaching for the stars, and they were reaching out into space in an idealism and aspirationally, but they were doing it in a totalitarian system, so it's a very different kind of show.
Right, yeah. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. I would love to continue to try to pry God of War info out of you, or just talk about Star Trek, but we'll have to save that for next year's Comic-Con. Ron, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
We can't wait to see what you do with God of War. Stick around. There's much more to come from IGN here at San Diego Comic-Con.